everybody. Thank you all for being here this morning. This month, we're super proud to be able to present the theme of courage, presented by WordPress.com around the world and illustrated very beautifully here by the incredible Annie Wong, who's one of our community members. When we talked through as a team what potential topic that we might want to choose for this, courage stood out right away because there are so many folks here in Oakland who perfectly embody the theme of courage. The best part about courage is that it can look completely different for different people. So it can be courageous to leave your day job to pursue a creative passion of yours. It can be courageous to walk thousands of miles through the woods by yourself. But it could be equally courageous to stand up for something that you believe in. That's taking to the streets in a protest, or even just like speaking up against a friend who may have said something that you don't agree with. With that, we were super excited to run the Audience Takes the Stage program this month. So please help me give a warm welcome to our 3 Audience Takes the Stage winners. Jillian Mama J. Roth, Margot Jaffe, and Mayo Atamori.
I'm standing in my truth that it takes courage to show up. It takes courage to live your truth, and even more courage to do so every damn day. I find myself at a crossroads, a threshold of courage, stepping on to this creative morning stage, giving myself and you permission to stand in the Zen definition of courage. 2, find the courage to hold on to your beliefs, even if the world around you chooses to believe differently. Have the courage to change those beliefs that no longer fit the person you have become. In doing so, you truly become yourself. So thank you for the permission to be my authentic self in front of this beautiful room of Oakland creatives, soaking in the creative play and inspiration that is the Oakland Museum on my favorite day of the week. Why, you may ask? Simply put, I'm living a life by design, doing work that I love every day. Even the days that are hard and sometimes feel like a struggle, like yesterday, there's always a lesson, a reflection back on what's next. And so Fridays are my day of freedom to reflect and integrate what has set me free each week. So as I stand in this present moment, I take a deep breath in and out. And will you join me? Take a deep breath in and out. Stepping into my truth of authenticity as a Black, mixed race, queer love leader and mamapreneur who's living and igniting a lovevolution of intentional justice to love yourself like a mother. So now with the time that I have left, my dream is that I can inspire you, my fellow creatives, to see courage as a precondition to thinking critically. Let me repeat that. To see courage as a precondition to thinking critically. The adage goes, do something every day that scares you. Unsure how this adage really took root, what I do know is that as I start to peel back the onion and begin the risk-taking dive into waking up to white dominant culture practices, I'm simultaneously activating what I call my cultural superpowers, one being a praxis of persistence. So as I wake up and begin to unlearn these practices, facilitate dialogue, to continue to peel back the onion for myself and others, and then reflect further, both individually and collectively at the tables I sit, all to inform bite-sized and deliberate daily action that can create justice in our lives, often triggering a new cycle, because it's all cyclical, right? Of persisting to learn and unlearn as I and we work towards liberation. So until recently, these 15 practices of white dominant culture were my blind spots. I confused, or better yet, internalized, and then self-oppressed myself by labeling them as personal shortcomings. So the three that I'm currently focused on in this moment of unlearning and exploring is perfectionism, a sense of urgency, and defensiveness. Collectively, these 15 practices that are each of our responsibility to unpack are damaging because these are the norms and standards that have and continue to be used without proactively being named until now. So when I return to the adage, do something every day that scares you, I now can recognize that this stance comes from privilege. Because being a Black queer mama in 2018 is humbling. Because the honest truth, I'm scared daily for Black lives. Our brother, Stephon Clark, is proof of this yet again. That being yourself and standing in your truth is scary, even in your own damn backyard. And so as we continue to persist, the antidote to this privilege adage is tapping into our cultural superpowers, or the strength of our intersecting identity dimensions. Because I believe identity is the key to unlocking and revealing the stories we tell ourselves and one another. So before I wrap, I want to share my top 3 cultural superpowers. A praxis of persistence. Well, really, it's a constant cycle of learning and unlearning and dialogue and reflection and deliberate action, like today, standing in front of you. This idea of intentionality, that it takes bite-sized and deliberate daily action, or what I've coined intentional justice. And that intentional justice is what our cultural superpowers look like in practice at the intersections of our lives. The third superpower I have is love leadership. That leading from your heart is holding space for each of us to be the leader of our own learning as we co-create experiences of liberation to be you. So as Cornel West says, the courage to love truth is one of the preconditions of thinking critically. Because as we know, the truth of Martin Luther King's words is that the arc of social justice is long. And what I believe is possible to experience is intentional justice in our lives. So I leave you with this bite-sized action to ponder. But to ponder this, what are you currently unlearning or learning in a creative or soul project? What cultural superpowers can you activate as the antidote to this unlearning or learning? Because what comes top of mind is what we actually know we need to work on, right? So personally, I'm unlearning and unraveling my experience with white dominant culture practices as I learn to activate my cultural superpowers of intentionality, love leadership, and a personal practice of persistence. Because if this nugget has taught me anything, that beloves justice, and yes, with a capital J, in our life is possible with bite-sized and deliberate action, because intention is everything. So, if you want to claim your cultural superpowers, you can download my intentional justice activities here. And by doing so, you're joining the Lovolution. Yep, love and revolution mixed together. Following along my mamapreneur journey, that's a juggle, but a joyous one. As I myself are at a crossroads, a threshold of courage, my own soul project settling into a new vision, the Soul Medicine Sisterhood Collective. So as I have the courage, I want you to have the courage to keep showing up, to keep living your truth every damn day. In Lovolution, Mama J.
that their mind works differently. Okay, cool, I'm in good company. Well, the good news is there's no such thing as a normal brain. The idea that there's a normal brain and an abnormal brain is actually a socially constructed fiction. But don't take my word for it. Last month, neuroscientists at Yale published new research that proves that there's no such thing as a normal brain, and that in the human species, there's actually an infinite range of neurocognitive functioning, neurological diversity, neurodiversity for short. So we're here at Creative Mornings, a beautiful community of creative people, and in society, we value creativity, innovation, thinking differently, but what we don't often talk about is that oftentimes innovative and brilliant thinking can be linked to neurological differences. So what we're learning is that many neurological conditions such as dyslexia, ADHD, autism, and many others oftentimes come with higher degrees of creativity and other superpowers. So here are just a few examples of creative people who have used their neurological differences to be successful. Lisa Ling, award-winning journalist, ADHD. Richard Branson founded Virgin Airlines, entrepreneur. He has dyslexia, also ADHD. Solange, one of my favorites. Demi Lovato. So I'm really passionate about this topic, and this all started about 4 years ago. My life changed when I was diagnosed with ADHD and learned that I had lived my whole life with undiagnosed ADHD. I never thought that I had it, although I did struggle with depression and anxiety and other symptoms that come with when you have a mental health condition that's undiagnosed. So ADHD is commonly associated with children and men, but what is overlooked sometimes is that there's also 6 million women with ADHD. And when I first got diagnosed, I went online to try and find some information, and I found that there wasn't really any empowering resources that represented my experience. There were so many stereotypes out there that people with ADHD can't achieve anything in their life, they can't focus, they're not going to be successful, and I knew that that wasn't true. So I have a background in documentary studies, so I started talking to other women with ADHD all across the country and interviewing them about their experiences. And what I discovered was that women with ADHD are some of the most creative, courageous, powerful, and amazing people that I've ever met, including some people that are in this room that I had the privilege to meet. And I decided that I wanted to change the perception of ADHD. And I launched Kaleidoscope Society in partnership with all these women. And it was a really amazing experience. We got to present at the International Conference on ADHD and be covered by Teen Vogue. So the day that the article came out in Teen Vogue, I wanted to share it with my coworkers. But they didn't know that I had ADHD because I hadn't told anyone at my job. So actually, 55% of people with a mental health condition will not share it because they fear that it will impact their career. And so I was working in production at the time, and I was afraid that if I told people that I had ADHD, then it would undermine my credibility in my career. So stigma leads to covering. Covering is when you hide part of your identity because you're afraid of what the consequences are going to be. And covering is exhausting, and it can take a heavy toll on people and make you feel disingenuous. And for me, I felt like I was not living my truth. I was an advocate for ADHD in the community, but when I came to work, I was covering part of who I was. So I decided to launch an employee initiative called the Neurodiversity Employee Resource Group at Yahoo, with the mission to empower all minds and make everyone free to be who they were in the workplace. And I was the only one at that time that I knew of with anything related to this. And after I did this, it was like I could not even expect it. One of these amazing art director came and I'd been working with him for a year, and he's like, "Oh, I have dyslexia." The other one said, "OCD." People just started coming out of the woodwork, sharing their stories. So that was about a year ago. Today we have hundreds of employees who have come forward, and we have members from our company in 24 offices around the world. So 3 things I've learned about courage through this journey. The first is explore your fear. Fear is a negative emotional and physical reaction to a perceived threat. So I'm standing here, my hands are physically shaking because a part of my brain is activating, telling me that there's a threat. But I am perfectly safe standing right here. Nothing's going to happen to me. So if you feel afraid, get curious, ask, why am I afraid? The second is build strength. So courage is the capacity to do something in spite of fear. So there's many ways you can build strength. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to start talking fast. But discovering your strengths and building on your strengths is really important. Strength Finders is amazing. It's something I recommend. Mindfulness is another way to build emotional regulation that can help you stay calm in the face of fear. The third is create a powerful story. Create a powerful story about yourself, your mission, and your truth. When you have a powerful story and a mission that's bigger than yourself, it makes it a lot easier to do something that scares you because you're working in service of a vision for something you want to create in the world that's bigger than yourself. And for me, that's what's allowed me to do things even though I was so afraid. So what's on the other side of fear? Everything. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and share something with the world, it liberates ourselves and others. So the question I want to leave you with is, what is one thing in your life that you're covering? And after this talk, maybe you can have the courage to go and share that with someone else. Thank you.
Good morning. How are you doing today? My name is Maya Watsumori. I am obsessed with questions. I believe questions are the first step to living a better story. I think they're the first step to doing better work and generally just living a better life. And if I have time, I'm going to talk to you about the secret question that I ask myself to live more courageously every day. But first, I'm going to start with a question. I'm going to have you guys ask your neighbor, how are you? Go for it. So I'm going to have you ask another question. I'm going to have you ask, what are you excited about? And you have 15 seconds. This is really great, how engaged you are. So did you guys discover anything interesting when people started talking about what they were excited about? And that's a real question, like shout something out at me. Cheesy grins. Do you feel like you were able to connect with who you were talking to in a different way just by when they started talking about what they were excited about? I think that's the thing about questions. Questions are really powerful. One, they can completely shift the energy of a conversation, shift the energy of a room, and they can completely transform our understanding of the world. And that's why I'm so obsessed and passionate about questions. To connect, now that I've talked about why questions are so important, I'm going to connect it to today's theme a bit more. So questions take courage. It takes courage to ask a question. It takes courage to answer a question. And as my friend Heather, put your hand up. As my friend Heather helped me articulate, questions turn you from an observer into an active participant. And will you please repeat that with me? Questions turn you... Do you see what I did there? Observers don't change the world. Participants and question askers change the world. And at every revolution, every transformation, every civil movement is rooted in a compelling question. Whether it's, ain't I a woman? Or why doesn't my voice matter? Or why doesn't my life matter? And most recently, why do you protect guns over kids? And so questions are serious. Questions are powerful. Questions can change the world. And I really want to encourage you to think about that in terms of how you ask your own questions. So I wanted to put this into practice. So I asked some of my community some questions. Katie, would you mind jumping up here? So about a week ago, I asked a bunch of people what their favorite questions were. Would you go ahead and open this, please, and tell me what it says? That's great. That's good.
Well, I'm not going to eat that now. Okay.
What's the other side say?
Would you like to get coffee?
And why is that important What's that? Why is that question meaningful to you?
It's the question my current partner asked me on OkCupid, and now we're dating.
Right. And why was that question? Why is that question so meaningful to you?
Well, it sparked our whole relationship. It was a great first date.
So, well, thank you so much for thanks for coming through.
You're
So
welcome.
the great thing, can you give Katie a hand,
Who
please?
here has ever felt
So, I mean, going back to my main point about questions encourage participation. As soon as I asked Katie and I asked all my friends what their favorite questions were, this stopped being my presentation. This stopped being my idea, and this started becoming a team effort. In conclusion, questions are powerful. Questions take courage. And being able to ask questions invites people and turns us from observers into participants. And when we start to participate, we create better work together, we create a better world together. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you.